left a good job in the city. No, I'm just kidding. You said rolling, so all I could think of was like Ike and Tina Turner, like rolling down the river. We're back for another week. And when I say we, it's because I decided to bring my better half with me because we're talking about creepy stuff. We're talking about creepy stuff here. And Lordy, look who's 40.
You're going Bill Burr on me there.
Yeah, I am.
Oh,
what do you call him?
Bill Burr. Oh, Billy Butt Cheeks. Billy Butt Balls there.
What else did you call him? So you said he has an action figure coming out.
He does. Mayfield Miggs.
From the Mandalorian. From the Mandalorian.
Yeah, from the Mandalorian.
You're saying it the way
our show.
You're saying it the way the teachers would say it in school when they do attendance. Mayfield Miggs Mayfield. They say it backwards and forwards and all the ways.
Frontwards and backwards, backwards and
you
forwards.
just have to say present. And like if you said here, they'd be pissed. I think this morning you call him, oh, Billy Red Tits. That's what he...
Backwards, forwards, backwards, just like Colonel Angus. Colonel Angus.
Colonel Angus. If anyone has seen Saturday Night Live and that skit about Colonel Angus, you know what I'm talking about. Well, anyways, you are Colonel Angus.
Colonel Angus doesn't wear socks when he visits.
Colonel Angus doesn't like me to wear socks when he visits.
Colonel Angus gets his mouth full upon arrival.
Okay, enough about Colonel Angus.
Colonel Angus doesn't like to be counted down.
Poor Colonel Angus. Well, I'll tell you, Colonel Angus. So I brought Rob back on the show because for episode 40, and it's getting close to Halloween, right before I do a live stream on Devil's Night. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo, when all the devils come out. All spirit activities happening. We thought we'd get started with this creep show business with what I think is probably the most divisive question in general right now, because we need a more divisive society that we're already living in. On this episode of 21st Century Rocker Mom, I'm going to ask you this question.
Do I have to answer, or is this like one of those rhetorical questions that people just ponder when they hear it?
Well, I mean, you're going to answer the question. I mean, the listeners are going to figure it out for themselves, I suppose. And here comes the divisive question. And this is what's going to bring me to this whole episode. Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe there's life after death? Do you believe in the supernatural, the paranormal?
Do you believe in things that go bump in the night? Do you believe in strange noises?
Yeah.
Things that you can't understand.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like the Ghostbusters commercial.
Pretty much.
We're ready to believe you. Well, those are a bunch of different questions, first of all. Do you believe in ghosts is very divisive because what your idea of a ghost is different than what people would say is like a demon presence.
Okay, well, I'm just basically talking about presence of anything. It's like most haunted places.
Here's what ghosts. I will say, because you threw this question out this morning during breakfast that you thought about, well, maybe I'll start the podcast with this kind of big question, and it's been rattling in my brain. And I looked up that question just to see what I would find on Google. And Houdini had an interesting response, of all people.
Because he has like the Houdini magic house.
He said, I am open-minded and curiously dismissive.
Curiously dismissive. I would imagine he would say he was like curiously intrigued.
No, open-minded but curiously dismissive. Something very close to that at the very least. And I thought, well, that's
a pensive quote.
Yeah. I thought that was a pretty good one to throw out there for you.
Harry Houdini. I like that very much. I think I sound more like Natasha Lyonne than Bill Burr.
Madame Leota.
Oh my God.
Pagoda.
Bring back. Living La Vida Yoda. No. We're talking about scary shit because we live in a scary city anyway. I mean, we live in Murder City. I was talking about that on a podcast not too long ago with some friends of mine. That'll be out soon. I've been having a great, scary time talking about scary, crazy shit in London and body dumpings and Ugh, all kinds of fucking crazy shit. Next week, we're going to be talking about some fears. I'm going to bring up mine. But fears for me are, a lot of them have to do with haunted places. And you know that I like to go to haunted places because I love having the shit scared out of me. Every year, I mean, before COVID and before kids, I'd hang out and I'd go to like the Halloween haunt at Canada's Wonderland. And I remember one year going with a friend, and this is before like weed was legal, and this is before we had kids. So we brought a whole bunch of weed with us to bring to the Halloween haunt. But the Peel police up there do not like the marijuana. So she got caught with it in her purse. She brought I just brought some like joints and brought doobies and the boobies. She brought like a pipe and a big bag of weed and all kinds of stuff with her. And lo and behold, she got busted. So she's like, she got kicked out of the Halloween haunt. So she's like, what the fuck am I going to do? So she went to the car, totally changed her appearance, bought another ticket, fucking took the weed out of her purse because she knew I was packing, and fucking got back into the Halloween haunt.
Clever.
And met up with us and got in. She just like did her hair a different way, made herself like kind of look like a dude, pretty much. Took her piercings out, whatever. It was fucking hilarious that she actually was that resourceful that she got back in. So, I mean, kudos to her.
Was it a busy event? Like, was there a lot of people?
Crazy ass busy
well, then
event.
it's going to be like impossible for them to remember a face.
She was 1 in a million in a crowd. They're probably like, oh, hey, what's up, Justin Bieber? Come on and back in.
You know how many times I've like left a store because I forgot my bank card and like literally gone back in and like the people have like forgotten me and then I haven't done anything and I've like made like a scene, so I should be more memorable.
Is it because you're in a mask?
No, I mean like pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, here comes the big ginger loud guy. Oh, who are you again? I'm the guy that was like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't have my bank card. Like, that
just shows you how like non-observant people can be. And that's why I think that observing things like ghosts and things are scary. And I'm going to talk about some scary places. And some of the most haunted places in the world that I've read about, like when I was a kid, for me, I always thought they were places like Auschwitz and like Nazi death camps and places like that. And not just because of places like that have been destroyed. They're like gas chambers, and I've heard about lots of people touring them and stuff, but about things that happen there and things that survivors talk about that remember, like for instance, like something if you know a lot about the war and kind of the history behind what happened at the death camps, and talking to anyone who survived, that is horrifying in itself. And Himmelstrasse, which means like Heaven Street. So this was a place where Hitler's henchmen, if you survived the gas chambers, lo and behold, I don't know how you would survive the gas chambers, but if you didn't succumb to what went on in there, Himmelstrasse was Heaven Street. So you'd run out of the gas chamber and they'd kill you as you were like going, like as you thought you were like free and you were okay and you made it out. You thought you were, getting the road to heaven. And it was something completely different. So that was like one of the places that I was like, that's got to be one of the most haunted places like in the world, because I think where there is a lot of tragedy and there's a lot of suffering, I think that is probably one of the most haunted places on earth. I've got Edinburgh Castle in Scotland down as one of the most haunted places on earth because it was known for keeping colonial prisoners and prisoners that were also involved in the 7 Years' War. And Scotland, it's got some of Scotland's like bloodiest history behind it. And they have a ghost of a piper that apparently got stuck. He went down the tunnels to kind of, I don't know, explore, and he never returned. And
when you say a piper, you mean like a bagpiper?
Like a little flautist, like a piper.
Okay.
Like the pipers keep on
like the
piping.
Pied Piper.
Like a Pied Piper of Hamlin. Yeah, totally.
Pie.
Pie. Edinburgh Castle in Scotland is supposed to be really scary because this piper went down these tunnels and never returned. Because it was said that like these prisoners were treated so bad that they're, especially the ones from the 7 Years' War, that they would haunt the catacombs of this labyrinth of this prison.
That's interesting. Okay, that's
Castle.
really interesting because in preparation for tonight's discussion, I've read a few different theories about why ghosts may occupy places. And of course, the traumatic experience came up.
Yes.
Like you're talking about death camps or people that are trapped. They literally can't get out there. The other thing that I read is that some mediums believe that spirits or ghosts are attracted to places that they also liked when they were alive. So they could have died somewhere around the world.
Sure.
But their essence, their spectral essence, is attracted to the places that they enjoyed and spent time with, and they don't want to leave those places.
They just want to go home.
They want to go to the place that made them happy as well.
Sure.
Not just the place that they
familiar
suffered.
Places.
So kind of good and bad trauma.
Well, I mean, there's got to be like duality with everything, right?
And I'd never thought of something like that. So I thought, I guess, but when we think of loved ones, we think that hopefully they'll hang around us because they love us and they feel comforted and welcomed.
Because we are selfish people. I mean,
well, it's a comfort thing for us.
It is, for sure. But for them, it's like, where do they feel comforted?
Yeah.
Where they just want to go home. Who knows where that is for who knows who. I've got, as one of the most haunted and scariest places, speaking of mass graves, where a lot of crazy things have happened, we got 7 levels of mass murder and mazes and craziness under the catacombs of Paris in Paris, France. Some people call it the gates to hell. There are over 6 million people buried underneath the various tunnels in France in this mass grave, and you can literally not see the bottom. Now, in 1871, there were a ton of massacred monarchists that were murdered by French revolutionists in the actual catacombs, in the tunnels of them. So it's said that they're haunted by those. So, I mean, just that amount of level of bodies and not being able to see the bottom because there's that many remains, that's horrifying. Like, that's something, I don't know. I know people that have been there and have seen it, and they say it's just like astonishing. The feeling they get is just cold.
Yeah. I want to visit Paris for that reason more than like seeing the Eiffel Tower or having good like ham and cheese. I want to go to like the catacombs and
you
want to
go like Père Lachaise.
All that stuff. And I first started looking into the underground of Paris because of Interview with the Vampire. And their cool depiction of what it's like underneath the city.
Crazy.
And like even what they do to the vampires in that movie where they bury them up in the wall, like they break them up in the wall along with all the other people and like all the different tortures stuff that have all just been inherited from everything that had happened in a city of history.
Exactly. And they have a long history of doing those sorts of things and keeping things underground and under wraps.
Yeah. Well, and you look at all the cities in the U.S. that have multiple layers. Chicago, because the city burned down and they literally just built the city on top of it.
On top of it.
On top of the carnage. Second City.
Second City.
Atlanta has an underground as well to it.
Big time.
So there's a lot of like stuff that goes on beneath the surface. So it's no wonder that some of these souls feel trapped and stick around.
You got some places that you like the Stanley Hotel, or what people call the Overlook Hotel in Estes Park in Colorado.
Yeah, so the
US of A.
The Overlook Hotel is the name of the hotel given in the film The Shining. But the Stanley Hotel is what the inspiration was for that whole book. Originally, it was a project, of course, written by Stephen King, where he just called it Dark Shine at first. And he stayed at the Stanley Hotel. He was the only guest there. He's the only paying guest there.
I was the only paying
with
guest.
him and his wife. It's about 90 minutes north of Denver. You can still stay there, of course, if you want. And because he was a paying guest, they gave him the presidential suite, which was room 217. In the film, it's changed to 237. 237. And they actually shoot at a hotel in Oregon for the exterior.
Yes.
And the hotel in Oregon said, don't make it 217. Make it a room that doesn't exist so that we're not bothered by it, because they didn't want to embrace any of the haunted spiritualism, tourism industry.
That shit going on.
But originally, it was 217.
Wow.
And the story goes that there had been talks about the place being haunted, and it was kind of getting run down. And before haunted hotels were cool, this is when Stephen King, ended up being there just on a whim. He
just happened to be there.
He was looking for an isolated location to set his novel in, and it was
and
suggested that he goes there.
He was very famous for getting isolated and getting coked out and getting cough syruped up and just fucking writing and writing. That guy would do a lot. It was
before a lot of that started happening for him. This was his third book.
Okay,
so it was before that. He was with his wife. I think her name was Tabitha.
Okay, so he was into the cough syrup, but not so much the cocaine then.
And he fell asleep in room 217. And the story goes he had a dream about his 3-year-old son being chased around the corridors of the hotel by a possessed fire hose.
Jesus.
And he woke up like an inch away from falling out of the bed, went out on the balcony and had a cigarette. And by the time he finished the cigarette, he had kind of the plot for The Shining.
Already in his head.
Based on the dream he had and just putting the pieces together. Now, room 217, the only thing that had happened there was that it exploded at one point.
The actual room?
There was a gas main that went off, and there was a maid that was in there, and it blew her like through the dining room, but she lived. She only had 2 broken ankles. She recovered, and she came back and worked at the place until her death, like around her 90th year. Now, people still say they see a maid there now as well.
Maybe it's her because
she could be there because she spent so much time there. People say that if they're not a married couple and they share a bed, that they feel a force pushing them apart in the bed. People have reported...
It's a chastity ghost.
People have reported like doors, like closets and stuff opening and like possessions like getting dropped and like thrown back into suitcases and stuff.
What?
There's some extreme examples where couples have woken up and found their belongings outside the room, which seems really far-fetched to me. But
I've heard things like hearing ghost children playing in the hallways. I've heard that. I've heard the accounts of the kitchen staff hearing like grand goings on in the ballroom, only finding like to go into the ballroom and find out it's completely empty.
It's very, very active.
A party, but nobody there. It's like a hot spot for activity.
Yeah, and so that's the place that I was reading upon, like where some of the mediums came in and said, this was a really big tourist place and people really enjoyed themselves at the hotel.
There's a lot of good energy.
That's why there's a lot of people that come back. They also have a lot of underground caves there with limestone and quartz, which are known to harness spiritual energy or
they're conductors. They're believed to be conductors. Especially quartz.
So that's another thing that goes on there. Now, I didn't know this until I researched. Dumb and Dumber shot at the Stanley because, of course, the film takes place partly in Colorado.
And they're going to Aspen.
And the hotel that they shoot at is the Stanley. And Jim Carrey...
What?
And Jim Carrey stayed in room 217.
He did not.
And in the middle of the night, he got up and left. He ran out the door, couldn't do it anymore. Crew members were bothered as well by stuff that they couldn't explain and had to relocate.
My friend Jim Carrey. Yep. I love Jim Carrey.
Too spooky, I guess. True story.
Scared him? That bad?
True story.
Creeped out with Jim Carrey. Got the fuck out of the Overlook or the Stanley Hotel.
Since then, because of all the stuff that goes on with tourism, they've actually put a hedge maze in front of the hotel. It wasn't there originally.
It wasn't there before.
In 2015, they had a contest for hedge maze designs, and so they put one there because it's so closely shaded.
Hedge maze madness.
Because of The Shining, they wanted it to mirror and mimic and stuff. Of course, The Shining is all shot on a set. The interiors, the exterior, the outside is like I said, the hotel in Portland.
Yeah, I mean, Kubrick was.
The Overlook
shoot the way he did.
The Overlook is inspired by the Stanley Hotel. They do have ghost tours. Ghost Adventures have been there. Ghost Hunters have been there.
All some of the big paranormal investigators have been there.
Huge. And you can go on tours there. There was a writing retreat that I wanted to do there where basically you go there to write horror stuff or thriller stuff and you stay at the hotel all weekend long.
I remember it was before COVID hit or whatever.
I want to go there with you.
I want to go there. Yeah, so we want to go there together. We want to check it out. And we're big on, I would love to do a podcast from there, but I don't know what's going to go on with technology. Trying to podcast from a hotel where there is spiritual activity. I don't know if they're going to fuck with technology. I hope they don't because like the Stanley Hotel, it really intrigues me.
Well, that kind of reminds me of that Creepshow episode we watched.
Which creep show episode we watched?
The one with Ali Larder and
oh my gosh,
C. Thomas Howell, Ponyboy Curtis.
Where they were trying to drum up business for their haunted hotel. We're watching this episode of Creep Show because, again, we subscribe to the Shudder channel, which is amazing. What is it, like a month? What is it?
$5, I think.
$5 a month?
It's like $52 for the entire year.
Okay, it's worth your while if you have different platforms and you like horror stuff. Shut up.
It's worth it for the 3 seasons of Creep Show alone.
Shut up. Down, 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 down. And you know what, Kiss? You can't sue me because I said Shudder.
But the episode is about Ali Larder, forget her name.
I know a thing or two
Thomas
about her.
Howell.
I know she'll only make you cry.
She thinks that her aunt was like the first woman serial killer or mass murderer and killed people that stayed in the hotel. Like they can't ever find any evidence. But they try to do this and they lure a video YouTube vlogger to stay there, and they try to do like all the hokey pranks, and it doesn't work. So
like she does lives like all the time. She's always going on her live. She's like a 50 kabillion followers. They're like,
yeah,
let's bait and catfish this girl and scare the shit out of her. So she tells all of her followers, and then we'll be able to drum up some business in our shitty little hotel.
But it's such an in vogue thing to do now, to stay at like a haunted place, to go visit somewhere haunted. Like you talked about the Amityville house.
Yeah.
That everybody knows that's been listening, that like that's a huge place for you to check out. You have a huge fascination with the Warrens, as do I, and you just want to go drive past the Amityville house. You don't want to stop.
Maybe stand out in front of the sign.
But you want to stand out of the car now.
Okay, but I wouldn't go near it. There are houses that I will go near. But the house in Amityville, fuck no.
You wouldn't sleep inside that house?
Fuck no. I wouldn't want to set my feet on the property past the front gates. They don't even have the High Hope sign out there anymore. There aren't no high hopes for that house. It's too scary.
Where is somewhere that you would stay?
I don't know. We'll get to that. You'd
stay at the Stanley Hotel?
I'd stay at the Stanley Hotel. I wouldn't stay in room 217.
What about like 401 or 428, which are supposed to be really haunted as well?
I'd stay in one of the haunted rooms, as long as like I didn't have kids with me. Because if there was anything fucking around going on, if you fuck with my kid's spirit, you're going to get it.
If only we could get to Colorado, have an excuse to go around the U.S.
I don't know. I don't know what that could be. I don't know. You know what? Haunted boats.
What?
The RMS Queen Mary was a very prominent ocean liner. It is permanently docked in Long Beach, California. You know that now. Mm-hmm. That boat and where it's permanently docked is supposed to be super haunted. Apparently a 17-year-old boy, a sailor, died in the engine room trying to escape a fire. It's supposed to be really, really, really haunted. Room, apparently B340, is haunted by a murder victim who was actually apparently murdered on the ship while it was actively going. And then most people that have visited the RMS Queen Mary and have done the tours, because they've done tours there now as well, because it's permanently docked in California. And what else is there to do in California but go to fun attractions like this? There's a ghost of a young girl that apparently drowned in the hotel, like on the ship pool, on the ocean liner pool, and she haunts the pool area, this young girl.
That's terrifying.
Tons of people have seen her. There's actually a movie called Ghost Ship that was made with a very low budget years and years ago. An ocean liner like found in the middle of the ocean. And like they had like a tragedy happen like right at the beginning of the movie. It's very graphic. We're seeing if you like graphic shit. And it's about a ghost ship. There aren't a lot of things about haunted ships. Alcatraz, also one of the most haunted places in America. In San Francisco Bay, also in California. Knows how to party. California knows how to get their haunt on, big time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before Alcatraz was a prison, indigenous American people called it Evil Island. And anybody who spent time on, quote unquote, the Rock either didn't come back at all or came back like fucked right up. So even like what they had called then like Native American people, like Native American folklore, we in Canada we say indigenous people or indigenous peoples. They had so many inmates killed in escape attempts. They've got tons of pictures of Alcatraz. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of Alcatraz where like they're going upstairs. I've seen it in all kinds of ghost hunting shows where they've got prisoners like yelling and screaming, and you hear things. You can see like the little orbs and things going upstairs. Horrifying, like absolutely horrifying, because you can see everything. It's supposed to be one of the most active prisons ever, because again, so many deaths there, and the guards were so cruel. Of course, they had the Birdman of Alcatraz. Mm-hmm. They had prison cell block 14D, where apparently an inmate called out that he was being murdered by a creature in the middle of the night with his glowing eyes. And he screamed and screamed in horror all night long, and to no avail. The guards didn't care. And they woke up the next morning and he was like absolutely ripped to shreds.
It's crazy. I love all these places that you're mentioning, because as I divulged to you earlier today, I have a little bit of a DVD collection of ghost hunters.
I know you do, just slightly.
And my favorite part about it is that they go to a lot of these places and they share the history. Like a lot of these paranormal investigation shows, you know, whatever you think of their techniques and their technology and stuff, or what they find, sure, whatever. But to see the history and to hear the stories and see some archival like imagery to go with
That's what's exciting.
That's what I really like.
Well, you know, in Alcatraz, do you know that even Al Capone had reported that he was haunted by like victims that he had killed that had died. They were victims of that either killed in prison or that died in prison, like after he'd victimized them and they'd had run-ins together. Like people that died in prison that were victims of his crimes, they would haunt him.
Wow.
Isn't that strange?
So it was like a conduit.
Yeah, very strange. Like he was like
magnetic conduit.
And Al Capone will come up again, because that is not the only prison that Al Capone complained about this at. There was another prison as well.
Bad things that follows you around.
Fucking really bad. Borley Rectory in Essex. You don't think in the UK Borley is going to be, especially in Essex, is going to be like exactly. It doesn't seem like exactly like somewhere you'd find something really super scary. It just sounds like a nice little place with pubs and rolling green hills. But it is supposed to be the most haunted house in all of the UK. After a monk and a nun did the Humpty Hump, their affair was found out, and they were killed because of the affair. They were murdered because of it. So now the nun haunts the grounds and screams, and people that have gone to the rectory have actually experienced writing on the walls. That's horrifying.
I wonder if that's the inspiration for that nun story that's out, the Warren painting thing.
She wasn't banging.
I don't know.
Shit, have you seen that woman? That is a tear off the head.
Sometimes a monk can't be choosy.
Sometimes a monk does not look at the mantle when he's poking the nun fire. Like, he's just not. It's like a rip off the head and play with the body situation. We got Myrtle's Plantation down in St. Francisville in Louisiana, US of A.
Do you have the East State Prison in New Jersey on your list?
I think I might. It's pretty crazy. But at Myrtle's Plantation, people have, like, now people can go there and check it out. Again, it was built on an ancient indigenous people's burial ground. Why do you do that? Just like that guy in Pet Cemetery says, why would you do that? Well, what had happened there was people reported that they were getting tugged on, especially by children, but like in a way where they felt like they needed to be saved. And it turns out it was, like I say, it was a plantation. So there were a lot of children there. And one of the children was a slave named Chloe. Now, Chloe was known for notoriously disobeying her slave master. And he was notorious for being a piece of fucking shit. Because, I mean, what slave master isn't? You have slaves. You're a piece of shit. So the master caught her like eavesdropping on a conversation or something like that. So he cut her ear off. So when she's like 12 years old. So to get back at him, she got revenge on him. She poisoned a cake for him. But it turned out only his wife and kids ate it. So Chloe was hanged and thrown into the Mississippi River. And since then, she haunts that plantation ever since that happened.
I bet.
Mm-hmm. I got the Waverly Hills Sanatorium on the list in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh,
I knew you were gonna. I knew you were
that
like,
place.
yep. It was originally built in the early 1900s to actually contain a tuberculosis outbreak, and this is the sanatorium that I call the one that has the oubliette. This is where you put people when you want to forget about them.
Yeah.
Hoggle, what do you have to say about this?
That's freaky, man. Like, it's all the like sanitariums and
sanatoriums
and asylums and like the criminally ill, like.
Well, this is places where they originally just sent them to like quarantine because they had tuberculosis.
Yeah, but then they go mad from the disease that they have that they can't control, and they don't know what else to do with them, right?
Exactly. So over 60,000 people died there and were sent to what they called the death tunnel. And the death tunnel was a chute that basically led into it like an oubliette that they put bodies down to hide the death numbers and the counts from the patients so the patients wouldn't freak the fuck out. And then room 502 in Waverly Hills Sanatorium is apparently the most haunted room. Why? Because a nurse that was so like disturbed by what she saw there committed suicide. She hung herself with a light bulb wire.
These places are crazy because they're still around. Like, they haven't been knocked down. They're not in use.
Nope.
And it's like nobody wants to touch them because it's just like too much trouble.
Who the fuck would want to go near that shit anyway? Not me.
You wouldn't stay there?
There are certain places.
Would you walk through that place? The death tunnel?
Fuck no. It's a tunnel that goes straight down into Body Town.
Yeah, well, it's got to end somewhere.
Yeah, it bones. It remains. I don't want to go straight down into the fucking
it's like a slide.
Town. A slide into bones. It sounds like Action Park that I want. Fuck that shit. I don't even eat meat. I don't want to be covered in human
I'm sure
bones.
it's so... Okay, go
Ew,
ahead.
get out of here.
What else you got?
Pet Cemetery.
That one's
Ew.
good, though, because I've seen a lot of different teams investigate that one. Even the same teams go back a couple times to see what they can cover because there's so much activity they can't cover it all in one visit.
I was going to say it's so active there that they can't get it all at the same time. Eastern State Penitentiary.
That's it.
Yeah, in Fairmount.
Yeah.
It was a 12-acre prison, and it was open for 142 consecutive years. And the torture on the inmates in that prison was so bad that it's stuck there. It's stuck in the walls. It's stuck in the floors. It's stuck. The spirits are stuck there. Everything is stuck there.
Yeah.
They had the worst punishments like you could think of. They had almost like an Iron Maiden sort of type of chair they would sit you in. They were actually the first prison to use solitary confinement.
It's everything that I've seen from this place and everything that I've ever read is just like horrific. Like,
it's brutal.
Just reading the facts without any kind of colorful language is enough to like keep you up at night. Like, seriously, give you troubled sleep.
It's absolutely draconian what they would do to their prisoners here at the Fairmount, like at the Eastern State Penitentiary in Fairmount. Like, I can't believe, and Al Capone was there too. And this is another place where he was haunted by his victims, one in particular. And I don't know, it's people started seeing things because they started going crazy because they were subjected to all different kinds of, not just like torture, physical torture. They were also subjected to tons of psychological torture. Obviously, the onslaught of solitary confinement and all the shit that brings and all the demons that brings into your brain is not fun. Next, we have ding dong, the Tower of London, because what the fuck screams executions, murders, tortures, beheadings, hundreds and hundreds of ghosts. Fucking Jane Grey, Anne Boleyn, often seen carrying her own motherfucking head.
Jesus.
Tower of London, how is that not going to be haunted?
Yeah. There are some places that just have to be like on the list, or have enough trauma that's happened there that you would think they would.
Now, we're not in Kansas anymore, but have you ever heard of the Sally House in Kansas?
It sounds familiar, but it's not. I don't have anything that's coming to mind.
It's not gigantic. I think you can stay there now, but a long, long time ago, the Sally House, this is hundreds of years ago, it looks like a regular plain Jane house. I've seen it on YouTube. It belonged to the town's doctor. And one day, a mom rushed a 6-year-old girl there screaming in pain. Appy, like she had all the signs of appendicitis. So he was able to figure out what was wrong with her and realizing that her appendix burst. And so he gave her lots of local, but not enough for it to work in time. So she screamed and screamed through the procedure and ended up dying on the table with this man in her face who she thought was evil, trying to kill her and hurt her, as her last person that she saw. So this was little Sally. And so more than 100 years later, in 1993, this couple buys the house and they start to experience cold spots and hot spots and attacks. And animals are having problems entering certain rooms. They won't even go in rooms. And turns out now if people want to stay there, they're getting attacked. It was mostly a man who was getting attacked. So it must have been this little girl's revenge on this doctor that she didn't trust and thought that, was her last person she saw before she died. So Sally House is really scary.
That reminds me of that documentary that we watched. I don't even know if you can call it I guess it's something called Hell House. Remember watching that?
Oh my God. Was it? Oh my God.
I think it was it Zach Baggett?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, it was.
And they kind of tried, I think it's is it Toledo?
No, not Toledo,
Is it
Ohio.
Gary, Indiana?
Gary, Indiana. Oh my God, I think it's where Michael Jackson grew up.
It's somewhere in that north Midwest.
I'm pretty sure it's in Gary, Indiana.
And like they had found out that like the uncle who lived in the basement was like doing like satanic rituals and sacrifices, and the new people that had moved in there like were like getting like possessed and like having like their mind warped.
They had no idea
that
what was going on though. They're just like, what the fuck is happening here?
Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it now. 'Cause when I first watched that, I don't know why, it shouldn't have. Because remember, we watched in the first 30 seconds, they're like swearing, they're like, fuck this
And
place.
I was like, they're swearing?
I'm so pulled out of it that, because they're using like such language instead of like keeping it cool. But there's stuff still in that when I watched it that bothered me.
It makes your skin crawl.
It bothered me enough to like screw my dreams up.
Oh, fuck my dreams up big time. Man, a few notable places before I get into my favorite place, because I don't know if you're going to know where, I don't know if you can guess where my favorite place is. We got Chateau de Brassac in France. We've got Hofty House in Reykjavik, Iceland. Haunted by a very young girl. It's, again, built on a burial ground. You stupid motherfuckers, stop building on graves. We got the House of Death in New York in Greenwich Village. That was built in 1856, and when Mark Twain lived there, even Mark Twain reported some flying, levitating objects. And in 1987, at the House of Death, as they call it, in Greenwich Village in New York, there's a murder there. Parents were arrested and convicted of the murder of their daughter. She had her head absolutely violently bashed in. They were convicted of being on drugs at the time, but also convicted that something in the house, and they claimed that something made them do it. After all the shit that even Mark Twain saw. I mean, I know Mark Twain was kind of out there too, but come on now. Yeah. He was taking that, what do you call it? Laudanum?
Yeah, laudanum.
Oh, taking that laudanum. Oh, we're getting closer and closer. We're talking about taking that laudanum. We got Raynham Hall in England, haunted by the brown lady, Dorothy. We got Dragsholm in Denmark, where a lot of tortures and executions happened. It ended up being a prison. And now it's a luxury hotel. And Lord Bothwell actually died on the grounds, who was one of Mary Queen of Scots' husbands.
Right.
Lizzie Borden House in Massachusetts. She gave her father, I don't know how many whacks, but it's in Fall River, Massachusetts. And apparently Lizzie came from a great family, but in August 1892, she went fucking bananas and hacked her parents to death up with an axe. And apparently she hit her dad so fucking many times with his axe, she cut one of his eyeballs in half. Like it popped out and she severed it in half. And all she could be heard was just cackling with absolute laughter when she was like apprehended by police. But she was later then acquitted. I don't know if it was her age or what.
Oh, yeah. I would like to see the details of that acquittal, because at the very least manslaughter. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, that's premeditated murder, like whacking your parents both with an axe. That's something.
Did the Jim Henson Studios come up on your list?
It didn't.
So the Jim Henson Studios, which were formerly the Charlie Chaplin Studios, one of the earliest studios in Hollywood, the one soundstage that's there is reportedly haunted. People say they will hear workers and stuff walking around at night. No, again, big trauma or anything like that. No known deaths on the property. Just a lot of activity and stuff. There's been a few investigations that haven't really yielded anything on the TV side anyways.
Sometimes it's just a hot spot, though. There's been so much activity there. Like you say, like when mediums put it out in that way, like, yeah, sometimes there's been good activity, bad activity, or like a lot of activity. A lot of people have had a lot of energy of whatever sort there.
You know,
then it comes back.
This is going to sound really dumb, okay? And I'm not trying to
Don't say that sounds dumb.
This is going to sound dumb, but like
Here we go.
The Jim Henson Studios are like a stone throw away from like the La Brea tar pits.
I know.
How come there aren't like any dinosaur ghosts and like that kind of energy that's stuck around?
I don't know. You never know. I've not heard of them being haunted.
Because we know that there are reports of pets that haunt.
Yes. Yes.
You know, so animals aren't, immune from the visitations.
You know what else is not immune? Canada. We have scary ass places in Canada. Do you know that we have the Carl Beck House here in Penetang? You know Penetang-Washeen? I
have family in Penetang-Washeen.
I know you do. The Carl Beck House in Canada, after all the shit that happened there, they actually turned it into an Airbnb and you can actually go stay there. So Carl Beck was a very prominent guy. He had a lot of money, made a lot of money. He had 5 or so kids. His wife died of a mysterious and terrible illness. And so he had his eldest daughter kind of take over where mom kind of left off. And he kind of just kind of fucked off and did his business as he should. So that eldest daughter felt, pretty slighted. And then he went to die. He left all of his money to all of his children, tons of fortune, except for the one girl who got $1. $1. All those years, like being the mom. She lived her life in bitterness and got $1. So she lived her life in even more bitterness and now haunts the fucking house.
Yeah, waiting for your rewards, I bet.
Yeah, waiting totally for her rewards. Like, waiting, like, why didn't I get this money? Like, what happened here? And, I mean, Canada's got lots of haunted houses. We've got like the Waverly Mansion in London, Ontario here. We've got Eldon House in London, Ontario. Lots of things are haunted
courthouse
around
in
there.
London, Ontario.
Our courthouse is like London, Ontario is Murder City for a bunch of reasons, and I won't go into that tonight. I want to go into my favorite haunted freaking house of the land. My favorite haunted place that I think is the most mystical place ever, and is the place that I have discussed staying the night at.
Is this like somewhere in Niagara Falls? Like one of those weird haunted houses there?
No, I've been to Niagara Falls and gone to like historic Fort Scary and all that stuff. No. The Winchester Mystery House and Mansion. Built by Sarah Lockwood Paradis. Well, Sarah Winchester married into that family. But I have an unhealthy obsession with the Winchester Mystery House.
Now, I happen to know a little bit about the Winchester House as well. And, again, conflicting theories about why certain things happened. Do you have some backstory you want to share?
I do. So, I mean, Sarah Winchester wasn't Sarah Winchester to begin with. Sarah Lockwood Paradis, she was thought to be born in 1839 in New Haven, Connecticut. The exact date of her actual birth is unknown. She was the daughter of a middle-class sort of family. Her dad supplied the army with ambulances during the war, so they weren't hurting for money. She was a little thing like me. She was only 4'10" tall. So she had a good, prominent family. She was a child prodigy, they say. She knew 4 languages by the age of 12, played beautiful piano. And in church, young, she met her husband, William, which is William Winchester, the son of Oliver Winchester, who was making a lot of money at the time himself selling clothing, shirts, and material. So they met back then and fell in love, I guess. And Sarah was actually going to a very, I guess you can say her family was really progressive at the time, because a lot of her family were involved in Freemasons and Freemasonry, and they were Rosicrucians. And Sarah actually attended a school with William's sister, which is an all-girls school, which was almost unheard of at the time, that a lot of their principles and a lot of their practices, a lot of their education was built on Freemasonry, the free Masonic beliefs, as well as Rosicrucianism, which I think is where she got her ookiness, spookiness, gookiness, and she just wanted to just check out the paranormal side of things. Mm-hmm. So she was beautiful, beautiful girl. She was even called the Belle of New Haven. And around 1884-ish, she married William Winchester, whose dad by the time had taken a major shine to automatic firing rifles and thought there was some money to be made there. William was the treasurer of the company by the time his father died. He was no longer treasurer of the repeating rifle company. He was second generation business. He was the head boss in charge of the repeating rifle company, the Winchester company. And they married and they had a child, Annie, together, who unfortunately 44 days after birth, and you know this, she passed away of malnutrition.
Yeah.
Not on any part of Sarah and William whatsoever. But she had a very rare disease where her bowels and her intestinal system could not absorb proteins properly, I believe. Mm. And she passed away at 44 days. So that caused Sarah to start a great sort of depression. A great depression. And then in 1881, William, her husband, who she, that's all she kind of had left, he passed away of tuberculosis. So
yeah, what's interesting about that, I know he passed away less than a year after his dad passed away. So yes. His dad left Oliver. The Winchester firearm company to him because he died. So William inherits it, becomes head of the Winchester firearm company, and then William dies less than a year. And of course, their daughter had passed away all within that. So it's like tragedy, tragedy, tragedy.
All of a sudden, because they've got this curse, all of a sudden, because they moved from shirts to firearms, all these like cursed ass tragedies started happening, because these Winchester rifles were like called like the gun that won the West. Like these rifles made history, but they killed a lot of people. Yeah. In different modalities of battle and so on and so forth. And Sarah was convinced that after all these tragedies happened, and she fell into a very deep depression, and she was very convinced that because all these rifles had caused all this human tragedy and all the suffering, that she was cursed. So she went to see a spiritualist to try to contact her husband, contact Annie, her little girl who had so tragically passed away, and see what on earth she could do to try to keep herself away from this curse, to, exonerate herself and try to free the spirits from this pain that they were obviously experiencing. And what some of the stories said was this spiritualist, this psychic, this medium person told her to appease the spirits. She was to go to the West Coast and build a house and never stop building to appease the spirits, so they had somewhere to kind of go, so they could always kind of roam around.
So I heard, yes, go west, build a house. I heard there's the Happy Haunts version, which was what I call your version. Build rooms upon rooms, so all the deaths that you're responsible for have somewhere to live.
To be, yeah.
To be. Also heard that keep building and make it really strange and awkward so that you can escape from them when they come to get you.
Exactly.
So that if your house is convoluted, the spirits will get lost because it won't be the same and they won't know how to find you.
It was supposed to be confusing for them. One theory was if she kept building it, she would have eternal life. Yes, and she built it from 1980 or 1884, like I say, and she never stopped building it until her death in 1922.
The finances are what I found really interesting too. So when she inherited the Winchester Firearm Company,
yes,
she had about half of the company. I think it's 51 or 49%, and it was worth about $500 million in today's dollars, $20.5 million then.
Then $20.5 million bucks.
Every week she was getting $1,000.
Yeah,
which is equivalent to getting $27,000 today.
I know.
Can you imagine getting $27,000 a week?
Non-stop construction. And the only time these people got fired is when they slacked off, or for some reason, if someone saw her without her black veil on her face, because she was very well known for keeping these secret passages in her home because she didn't really like to be seen. She didn't like anyone to see her face. She was known for wearing a black veil over her face, so she wasn't seen. Was not her jam, not the Winchester way. She built and built and built. She started building up first, but then unfortunately in 1906, there was a terrible earthquake that destroyed the top. So then she decided to build out.
Which is what the funny part about that though is the thing it destroyed was the thing that was like the centerpiece that she had been working on, this tower, and it came crashing down in her room. And she was trapped there. She was there for like hours and hours and hours, and the servants and the servant staff couldn't get her out. And
she was absolutely scared, spineless, just done.
So imagine that. You're building this, you think you're cursed, you think these spooks are coming to get you and stuff, these specters and demons. And then the one thing that you're working on is the thing that's trapping you most. So what do you do after?
You build yourself a crazy-ass seance room when you build out. I mean, she had a beautiful blue seance room that you can actually stay in. And she was obsessed with the number 13. She loved it. She used 13 nails to seal things because she thought that was the number it would be to kind of seal ghosts in. Seance room, somewhere she could kind of be by herself and speak to spirits. Her servants often heard her speaking to spirits. The house itself was beautiful. Like, if you want to talk about style-wise, the house was done in American Queen Anne style on the exterior.
Yeah.
If I would say, like, if it had a style, it was definitely American Queen Anne. But in the inside, it was completely like the aesthetic movement in full force. Everything was ornate, down to hinges, down to doorknobs, down to details. Some of it was impish and whimsical, and some of it was like, spider webs in windows, 42 fireplaces. The place was absolutely like just inundated with everything you could think of, but every little detail. Like I say, doorknobs, hinges, windows, little pieces of wainscoting, crane. Yeah, exactly. Crown molding. Yeah. Exactly. Like little things carved in doors.
Some rooms made entirely out of wood without nails.
Absolutely. And other cultures incorporated into her room, and other cultures, their religions. Exactly.
Like windows and like floors and ceilings, because the exterior walls would become interior walls and they would just keep expanding.
Exactly. Like, other than just like the Winchester mansion itself, Sarah Winchester had a fascinating life just outside, shirts and repeating arms. She had a gardener that she kind of relied on,
confided in,
and apparently he always makes himself visible. And I was talking to a friend earlier this week who had been to the Winchester Manor, and that friend had sent me this crazy video of this fucking orb. This friend said they had called on the gardener, and the pictures, the gardener was not in the pictures, but as soon as they called on the gardener, it was all over this person's camera. And they said that the Winchester Mansion was the coolest places that they've ever seen. And we made a plan that when all this shit gets less crazy, we are going to go and we're going to stay one night over in the Winchester mansion. I'm going to podcast it. Hopefully I don't have any electrical interference if they let you do that. But we have made this plan that we're going to do this. We're going to probably shit ourselves. Because even they were like, have you seen the Winchester movie? And we own the Winchester movie with Helen Mirren. And even Helen Mirren reported that she was freaked the fuck out when she was doing the Winchester movie. Because, I mean, she played Sarah Lockwood Parody. She played Sarah Winchester. And she was freaked right out.
Yeah, she was spooked by checking out the place, for sure.
And, I mean, think about it. You'd be scared too. She had to engulf herself into that role.
As she does.
Yeah, and that movie was fantastic. It's a good, jumpy film. Not so, like, historically, like, on the ball.
Yeah, I think...
If you're looking for a biography.
When I think of that movie, I think of they wanted to tell a ghost story and needed a really unique location as the backdrop for it.
Yeah.
And so they've got a lot of things to work with in terms of elements to incorporate of these other tales that are going on with this doctor and how it can dovetail into what's going on with the myths and legends of the Winchester house and Sarah Winchester herself.
Absolutely.
And her extended family. So, yeah, it's a fun ghost story.
And exactly. It's an American ghost story, and people love an American haunting. They love those types of things. People like to get curled up by the fire and talk about those things.
It always comes down to like the rationale for the haunting and then how to like solve it for these films, I think.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like sometimes if like, here's how we got to like put the ghost at ease. It feels a little watered down, like it's achievable. And a good haunting you can't stop.
Exactly. You can't make it stop.
You know?
You can't stop a train. It's coming for you. Can't stop, won't stop.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You want to talk about can't stop, won't stop. I don't think I finished my story last week on my live stream because I'm going to go live again next week because it's going to be Devil's Night. Why the fuck not? We'll get some Coca-Cola. We'll get some Halloween costumes on. We'll go crazy. We'll have a live stream. Last week on my live stream, I was talking about consent. And oh my gosh. And I got sidetracked with a story. But I was talking about going to the pharmacy, and this is horrifying because, okay, you got to picture this. I'm going to the pharmacy. I'm wearing this outfit exactly. Flat shoes, black, no socks. I'm wearing the track pants of my grandfather, who is no longer with us. They look, though, like I have a little dick hanging down my leg. I'm wearing a Frank Turner and the Sleeping Soul shirt. It's got a coffee stain down the front. I'm wearing my hair up in a bun. I got a black ninja mask on. I look like motherfucking Bane 95 and 95 Bane. And I got gloves on so I don't touch my face.
You're in fine form.
I look great. I probably look like some crazy ass motherfucker.
That's what you should wear for your live stream.
Totally. What I wear to the pharmacy. Well, I had to get my son's insulin and stuff like that. Like, he's diabetic, our big guy. So I go in and I get his insulin and everything like that, but I have to get my prescription. And one of them is where they like, if you're tired and you know it, we got to write your name down with your driver's license. So if anyone's selling sleeping pills at this address, they'll know it's Miss Tanny Candler.
Yeah.
So there's a new kid working at the pharmacy. New kid in town.
Was it?
Everybody hates him.
I was going to say, was it Donnie Wahlberg?
No. All of a sudden, I give my driver's license, and he says to me, "Take off your mask." And I kind of started laughing. And this is where, like, consent came in, because I was just like, no. And he was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Why? What is this? Just the tip I fucking promised? No, why? Why do I take my mask off? Because we're in the middle of a fucking pandemic, and I'm standing here, like, in your pharmacy. By the way, will you kindly pull your mask up over your fucking nose?" And he's just like, "Fuck you." I'm like, "Excuse me?" And I'm like, it's on like Donkey Kong at that point. I'm just like, fuck this.
I don't get the mask under the nose thing. Like, if it's already on your face, like...
Pull it up. He was just doing this to be disrespectful. And when I spoke to other women about this, they said he's super disrespectful to women. I'm like, not fucking cool. So I was like, no, I'm not going to have this. So he's sitting there telling me to fuck off, telling me the pandemic's not real. Oh, you're probably one of those people that has a vaccine. So I'm just like, yeah, like I am one of those people who has a vaccine. But here you are behind a pharmacy just denying that this pandemic's real with your mask around your asshole, asking me to take mine off. He's like, no, I'm not giving you these pills unless you take your mask off. I'm like, I'm not taking my fucking mask off, buddy. So I look over the pharmacist and he's like, give her medication. He knows me. Pharmacist is a very nice man, gentleman. This guy's still laughing at me, so I'm so fucking pissed. So I finally say to him, I'm like, okay, I'll take my mask off. And he looks at me. I'm like, when you take your fucking pants and your underwear off and shake that little dink around. Well, he just like had it. He just like put the prescription in a bag, gave it to someone else, and just like fucking walked away. I was like, yeah, you walk the fuck away, bitch. You walk the fuck away. And while you're at it...
I just love the entitlement of people. Like, they're just trying to abuse their position of power because they got nothing else going on in their life, and all they're doing is like making somebody else's life hell because they can.
But what if he would have done that to like an elderly person? Like, he's like, whatever, you're a pandemic denier, whatever. There's tons of them out there. But what if he would have done that to like an elderly person who would have believed him and just taken him at his word? Exactly. Or anyone. A little person, anyone, like a child, because they're going to take this person's advice because they think because they're wearing a white coat and they're working behind a pharmacy. This person obviously was not a pharmacy technician and was not a pharmacist. This was just some kid who got a job at the pharmacy helping behind the counter, like stock shelves, and can ring people in.
You would think that it was somebody of lesser education to act like this. Who knows?
Oh yeah, when I talked to the lady at the pharmacy today, because I was like, oh, we got to pick up things for diabetic supply. I'm like, is my best friend working? She's like, fuck no. She's like, but she said that they had a lot of complaints from women about this particular male person and his lack of, giving a shit about consent and people's like body autonomy and asking them to take off their masks. And even she said to me, don't fucking take your mask off here. She's like, we have a mask mandate. I'm like, until that's, not a thing anymore, I'm going to keep my seatbelt from my face on my face.
Yeah.
Because seatbelts save lives.
So irritating that, like, it's a thing where you have to, like, now put in your head that somebody might not just be on the same page.
Someone might not like my mask and they might want to take it off. If I don't like someone not wearing a mask, I just kind of stay away from them. I'm not like, hey, you put a mask on.
It's dumb.
I'm not going to go there and
I don't know what else to say other than
rip their face on.
It's dumb.
It is dumb. And that, again, that'll go into the fear episode of Fear Factor next week. Who knows what I'll eat or what I'll do. Something crazy. Fuck you, Joe Rogan. Maybe it's not going to be ivermectin. I'll tell you that much. I don't want to shit spaghetti all over the goddamn floor. Talking about that. This week, doctors are getting banned from giving ivermectin. I was talking to my friend. She said her friend's neighbor's wife was giving their husband ivermectin as a preventative treatment for COVID. She's like, honestly, I don't give a fuck what people do. I'm like, this motherfucker is going to be shitting spaghetti until the fucking end of time.
People are doing what they got to do to survive. That's all I know.
You know what I've been doing to survive lately?
I can't force people to do anything.
You've been hearing lots of things I've been doing to survive lately, like fucking metal riffs from the basement.
Yeah, what's going on with that?
A long time ago I said that maybe that I lost my edge and that I would have to hire a producer to like help me find my edge again. And I was actually talking to SJ Jones about this. I'm like, oh, I think I lost my edge. And you know what? I dug deep and I think I found that little edge. So I've been fucking around with metal riffs. And like I said, I wanted to release one kind of thing at a time. So I'm really excited to lay down some metal tracks, which is insane because I didn't think that I would be doing this and playing metal or even thinking about playing metal at all.
Well, I like what I hear.
You like those riffs that you're hearing through the floor?
I was about to kind of mouth the riff, but I can't do it. I can't mouth chug it.
You can't because it'll ruin it. No.
I've said too much.
You said too much. Now I have to kill you.
Oh, no. I'll haunt the house.
Lady, get away from me.
Put down the knife. Tanya, put down. Tanya, no! Put down that knife!
Stop. Sounds so scared. So next week, again, we're going to have a live stream. I'm going to have a live stream and be hanging out with you. You know where to find me on my YouTube channel at Tanya Candler Channel. You will find me there. If you click subscribe, if you just click that little subscribe button and the little bell, you'll get a notification about when we're going live. So if you fall asleep, your phone's going to go, wake up, bitch. It's live time. Woo, let's go. And it's Devil's Night. So if you want to get all cray-cray, let's do it. You know where to find me. I'm always a slave to the gram at Tanya Candler, at Twitter, and at 21st Century Rocker Mom everywhere else I can be found. Like, again, Instagram and 21st Century Rocker Mom on TikTok as well. I'm getting a lot of kitty questions on there lately and funny kitty stuff. So if you like the kitty stuff, TikTok is where you should go. I mean, if you like a lot of the kitty stuff, 21st Century Rocker Mom page on Instagram where you should go. If you like random banter, Twitter is where you should go. Just subscribe to all of them and do yourself a fucking favor. Where can they find Rob McCallum?
Hit me up on Twitter at Rob McZob.
Hit you up on Twitter?
Yeah.
Is it the best place to find you?
That's where I'm having a lot of good conversations these days.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I've been having some good threads going on.
Threats?
Threads.
Oh, threads. I'm like, oh, speaking of scary shit. Threads. But no, come find me on Instagram. That's where I am mostly. We'll talk. Who knows? Maybe I'll send you a link and you'll be on the next live. Who freaking knows? All kinds of Halloweener surprises coming down the pipe. Until next week, I will see you beautiful people then. Rob, thanks for being on the show and hanging out with me and talking about the creepy old Winchester mansion with me.
I like talking spooky stuff. You know that.
I like it. I like it creepy, baby. The creepier, the better. No, come on, baby. Light my fire. Let's watch some horror movies.
Okay.
Mwah. I love y'all. I'll see y'all next week. I'm going to have a Coca-Cola and stay up forever.